he was always proactive. Like, even though he had his IEP, he was always proactive. It's like my other two boys didn't have no issues with, dyslexia, and he got the best grades. My dyslexic child had the best grades. So it's like he just always put in the extra effort, put in the extra work. He didn't let his disability define him.
Hello, and welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. It is 2023. It's weird saying that still. I find it very, very odd writing that, saying that. And the other day somebody said to me, oh, this thing happened in 2009. And I had to go, how long ago was that? Right? Like, that feels like it was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It wasn't. It was 14 years ago. What? And so just time is fleeting and just very, very, it goes so fast. It's amazing. So welcome to our 4th season, and welcome to 2023. We have an exciting event that's coming out. We are going to be launching our Patreon account this season. So in about 1 month, in February, we will be launching our Patreon. Now, that is for providers that are interested in play therapy certification. We are able to offer live webinar trainings for play therapists that are looking for CEUs for the live trainings, and then also EUs for recorded trainings. And if you are trying to get your play therapy certification, you know that you need some that are live in real time and some that can be recorded. Our live ones are happening in real time, but they're virtual. They're on the computer, so you can do it from your house. So we are excited about that. So go search us on Patreon at Heart and Solutions Trainings. Now, I've been reading a lot about podcasting lately, and by reading, I mean listening on podcasting. And they say that if you ask people to like the video, if you ask people to share the video or subscribe to the video, that people will do it. And I find myself doing it. I'll be like, oh yeah, this is a great episode. I'm gonna like this episode, right? Or I'm gonna put. There's this lady who does like depression meal cooking. Like, she cooks, well, I think she's passed now, but her grandson recorded her cooking these meals that she grew up with in the Great Depression. And it's so cute, Clara. And I always find myself like commenting on her stuff. Like, I love Clara, she's so sweet. Right? So please send us a comment on there. Subscribe to these, then you'll get them a notification to you every time there's a new episode. All right, I'm Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions in Iowa. We're a mental health counseling agency.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am the Vice President at Heart and Solutions, in charge of our BHIS department. So BHIS stands for Behavioral Health Intervention Services, and that's the program where we go in home and work with children 4 through 18 on different behavioral skills, or in school, in the office, telehealth as well. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit for mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
So we post on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. We really encourage you to batch up your laundry with the rest of us. And don't put away clean laundry on a Tuesday night. That is a waste of a perfectly good Tuesday night, okay? Put it away on Sunday night when you're getting ready for the week. And that way you don't have to think about it throughout the rest of the week, but that gives you the entire week to listen to that week's episode on Sunday night while you're putting away your laundry. That gives you that entire week to get in touch with your counselor, get scheduled with a counselor, or get in touch with one of our guests and resources from this week's episode. So today we have a special guest, and she's a return guest, which we love when our guests come back to the podcast. It's just so fun to get those updates, kind of dig deeper into the things that we got to touch on in the beginning of the episode. I always feel like the episodes go so fast. And a lot of times I feel like, gosh, we could have talked for 3 hours about these topics. So we've got Tenesha Gatson here with us today. Tenesha is one of our Heart and Solutions board members and joins our compliance board once a quarter to give us all of her ideas and inspirations and experiences that help guide our agency. So welcome, Tenesha. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm Tenesha Gatson, and I live in Manchester, Iowa. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, and I've worked in healthcare for a little over 15 years in an administrative capacity. And I'm just a mental health care advocate and an advocate for mental health and therapy. And I currently do social media content on mental health and and wellness with my social media platforms, with my TikTok and Facebook platform, just informing adults and also parents. I do a series, well, I just done a particular series on letting parents know about pediatric neurologists and how they can use the pediatric neurologist to get their kids tested for like ADD, ADHD, and behavior health, or if their kids are suffering from like autism or any of behavioral issues. Because a lot of times, a lot of parents don't know that you can go to your local pediatric neurologist to get them tested for these services. So I did a whole breakdown of that and just breaking down the differences of like an IEP and a 504 plan. Just doing a whole series on that. And I've got so much traction from like parents and special education teachers, just doing different content on that. So I've seen that the particular content that I did on that particular series with parents and even teachers. I mean, it's gotten like so much traction with my social media platform during that particular series, and just giving them information and kind of let parents know what to expect. Because one of the specialties that I work for is pediatric neurology. And by me being a parent who has had a child like that had dyslexia and kids who have had IEPs and 504 plans, I'm able to sympathize with them also, to explain kind of like the process and, you know, letting them know about wait time with appointments and kind of what to expect with those different things. And kind of like even with insurances, letting them know like you can use your state Medicaid programs does accept, you know, the doctors does take this particular insurances and also your commercial insurance. So kind of like breaking those all down like in segments of each particular thing with that. So that has been really, really helpful to parents as well.
That's really cool.
That is very cool. So you're using your personal experiences as a parent and those challenges that you experienced yourself and the things that you learned to help other people, help other parents to prepare for those kinds of challenges. What are some of those most common challenges that parents might face when they're trying to enter the world of pediatric neurology for their child to help those child with those things? What are some of those main challenges? And then what are some of the things that people should know to be able to overcome those challenges?
Well, the first initial thing really is kind of like they just not knowing where to start. A lot of parents feel like they're the only one, their child is the only one. And then a huge thing is not being aware of the wait time. A lot of times when your child is suffering from like ADD, ADHD, or autism, they always think they have to wait on the school system to test their child. And to wait on the school system, you'll be waiting like a year or 2 years sometimes to get your child tested. And you'll be better off going to the pediatric neurologist because you'll get an actual physical diagnosis, you'll get the testing that they need. And that can work one of two ways for you, because if you get the actual testing and a actual diagnosis for the child, if that child qualify for your state disability benefits, you can start applying for those benefits. And furthermore, the additional services that they need. I mean, you can kind of light the fire to the school system to actually get them in an IEP plan. You know, a lot of times kids get frustrated in school, and it kind of hinder their learning because they'll think like, oh, you know, I'm not so smart, or they don't want to learn. And it's really not them. They really have an underlying issue. So you will want those services in place. And like I'll tell parents in the video too, like, you got to realize you are the number one advocate for your child. Don't let the school system intimidate you. You know, I even did a video like breaking down in the meetings, no question is a dumb question. You got to realize this is your child and you're their number one advocate. Mm-hmm. Don't make, you know, no question is a dumb question. You know, you are new to this. You don't understand this. So if anything you want to know, you know, ask, because they have, you know, it's set up to any aids that your child need, whether it's visual, you know, they have to provide those services. You know, sometimes kids need something visually tailored to them. Sometimes it's maybe they have to have like audio books if that's provided for them. So it all depends on what their need is, how that plan needs to be tailored to them. And then the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan, like that, one of those plans, it can follow you from K all the way to college. So they can even have those services in college. And then as your child gets to like the high school level, when they get 16, you want to invite them into the meeting. So when they get to college, they can advocate for themselves. Because when they get to college, you're not going to be in that inside of, you know, with them to advocate for the services that they need. They're going to need to know how to do that for themselves. So you want to include them on those, you know, in those meetings, so they know what it is that they need. Because each year they'll get it tailored, because some things have changed. Maybe they got better at certain things. Some things they might need more help with. So each year is updated depending on their need.
Interesting. I didn't know that one of them even lasted till college. So that's cool. Yeah, which is what I was going to ask about. So you mentioned like you've done some TikToks on IEPs and 504 plans. New parents who are coming like into this and have no idea what those even are, what that even stands for. Can you give us some background, even what that is and how they can get started in that process?
Sure. So an IEP is an individual education plan, and a 504 is more tailored to a child who has like a health problem. So just say if your child has like anxiety, or they have some type of medical issue, just say if they have a sickle cell or something like that, a 504 plan is more tailored to that child, because they have a health condition, but it doesn't hinder the learning process. So that means like they're academically smart, but they have this health condition that interferes with school.
Okay.
And then the IEP is more so that they have something. IEP is more so for a kid who has like ADD, ADHD, autism, or they have dyslexia, something like that. So that's more tailored to a child that has like a developmental delays or something like that. So they have issues that affects their learning. So it's even a chart where I show parents like a side-by-side chart. So you know the differences of, okay, this is tailored to medical issues. This is tailored to more of, you know, these particular issues. And it's a side-by-side chart that I show them, so they're able to see the difference between the two. And then I also explain to them what is considered an IEP and what is considered a 504 plan, and explain to them the difference between that. And then also explain when you initially schedule your child for the first appointment for pediatric neurology, the wait time is anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And that's just your first initial appointment. So you have to be prepared for that. You know, like it's not something you're going to get next week, you know. And then depending And I was just explaining to him, it's like that because a pediatric neurologist sees an array of things. They see patients who are, have seizures, brain injuries, they see a lot of different things, not just tailored to the educational piece of things. And sometimes parents wait until right before school start, like, oh, my child needs this evaluation for school. Like, it don't work like that, like, so just kind of like preparing you for what's ahead. So that way you can schedule that appointment in time enough. Say, okay, now it's January, your child gonna need this IEP by September. Schedule the appointment ahead of time so you can get them, in to be seen. You want to take a summer vacation, so going ahead and schedule it now,
Right.
So a lot of the information that I've given, a lot of parents have saved it, to their favors, and was thanking me for the information because they wasn't aware. Like I always say, being informed is huge. Like for me, I had to do the legwork of learning about the different things. It's like, even though I was in healthcare, I wasn't in behavioral health, so to speak. So I wasn't aware, like, I can go to a pediatric neurologist. And so I started working in the specialty. I learned more about what the specialty does. So by me working in the specialty, I was able to, okay, let me create this content because I have experience on this end just by dealing with it with two of my boys. Now let me share this information with more parents, because I know, like, when we get parents calling, if they have concerns, it's like my director will always give the calls to me because I'm always able to calm them down. Or parents a lot of times ask for me specifically now because I'm able to, like, soothe them or give them more information, or kind of like tell them what to expect, because they like, oh, I don't know what to do. And, my child is, having this issue, and, oh, I just feel like I'm the only one. Or sometimes when they dealing with co-parenting situations, like that sometimes be the hardest thing. Like I had one mom the other day, she's dealing with a co-parenting situation where the husband took the child to see the doctor for ADHD, and the doctor just automatically put the kid on some meds after one visit. And I'm like, what? That's unheard of. Because, after one visit, first of all, they need to be tested. They need to have like, they just need to have like for a series of tests. You just don't put the kid on medicine first visit. I mean, like, not that I've experienced in working in this field. You just don't put the kid on medication the first visit. And so she don't believe that the child should be taking medicine, and she's a teacher herself. So she's dealing with that piece, and now she wants the child to be seen, while she's with her. So now you have a situation where mom don't want the child to take the medication, dad giving the child medication. I said, well, that's a cause for concern, because you're giving a child a medication that you can't abruptly stop taking. A medication like that, a child has to be weaned off.
Yeah.
So, like I explained to her, you kind of in between a rock and a hard place. Like, I don't know how to advise you on that. All I can say is, you and the father have to come to some common ground, because you're dealing with a medication now, you're dealing with a kid. So something has to have some type of resolve.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And those are situations, those are so difficult. And if it isn't a type of co-parenting situation where everybody can come to an agreement, then going back to the attorney that represented you as the parent in that custody agreement, in that divorce agreement, and going to them and saying, this is the situation. I either need mediation to happen on this, or we need to bring this back to family court, or we need to have the attorneys handle it between themselves, because like you mentioned, it is a very dangerous situation. As that parent, I would not feel comfortable taking them off of the medication when they're at my house, because they were on it already.
Mhm.
And that can be very, very dangerous. But at the same time, I don't agree with the medication. I wasn't part of that discussion with that psychiatrist. And so, like you said, it does feel like a rock in a hard place. And that's where those advocates for us as co-parents really come into play. Like, don't feel afraid to contact your attorney again and say, this is what is happening, because like you said, it is that important. It is that to that level where those things need to go to mediation, or they might need to go back to family court. And so what a great background that you have working in this field professionally, but then also coming at it from personal experience to be able to help people to understand what you said, they're not alone. And that is such an important piece, because we can feel like we are so alone. I also love what you said about preparing ahead of time, and having the expectation, changing the expectation from, oh, I'm going to be able to call and get scheduled and get in there and get that information I need for the IEP. It reminds me of when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was like, 3 months pregnant, and she was on the preschool waiting list because we're in a small town. But she was on a daycare waiting list. She was on a preschool waiting list, and she wasn't even born yet. My daughter's been diagnosed, but she was diagnosed at a young age, and we worked with her at home. But I've never been offered an IEP or a 504 at school. And I think it's because the challenges that she has, we found solutions kind of at an early age for those things. And so they're not showing up at school. But that doesn't mean that an IEP or a 504 can't help her, right? Like, an IEP absolutely can help her. But I think that sometimes what happens for kids is that only the children who are having behavioral difficulties or learning difficulties that are showing up at school are the ones that then get referred for pediatric neurology and for additional testing. And so what you said about parents being your child's best advocate is absolutely right. Because for my child, she wouldn't be referred for an IEP or a 504, but it could still help her, right? And I know that. And so as a parent, being able to bring that up to the school and bring that documentation into the school and say, look, I know it doesn't look like she has this condition, but she does. Like, it's a lot of work to make it not seem like she does, right?
But that's the thing. You don't always have to. The thing is, see, with the school system, you don't have to wait till the school say she needs it, because a lot of times the school, that's the issue that a lot of parents have. The school don't always have the resources to test the child. And that's the issue that a lot of parents was having. They'll just pass the kids along, and the kids go on. They might have years of not having been tested, having trouble, and been 4 or 5 years could probably needed these service or been without. And sometimes you wonder, like, why they struggle, or they only showing signs of different things at home, or it could have been red flags mom or dad seen, but they kind of brushed it off. Oh, they just do this sometimes. That's why a lot of parents found out, like, or maybe the pediatrician said, well, oh, we'll just take them to neurology, or maybe they went to ENT, and ENT say, well, oh, maybe you need to get them seen by pediatric neurology and see, what's going on. So they take them to a pediatric neurology, and then they say, well, okay, they have this. Like, a lot of times kids sometimes be like on the autism spectrum. They don't fully have autism, but they could be on the autism spectrum, or they can have some form of developmental delay, or they could be a little dyslexic. They might not have like ADD or ADHD, but like, it could be signs of certain things that are there. So that's what a lot of the times, like, sometimes parents run into. Like, it don't always be like true behavioral stuff where a kid just like acting out, or they just being rambunctious, or sometimes like certain parents, like we get calls and the dad might be like, oh, I think my kid has, a behavior issue. And it's like, okay, well, mom don't think so. The kid is 8 years old. I'm like, oh, they just being a boy. Like, what you think he was sit there still? Like so mom, like I don't think he's doing that because when he was me, he just sit and plays with his Legos. He don't do all this stuff. Well, what attention is dad giving a kid? So it's just like, and then you got to think too, like this is talking about that same mom with the medication. Well, okay, y'all newly divorced, a kid is going to act out. So is this a kid acting out because the parent is divorced? This is me, at the mom explaining the story. I was like, okay, well, you separating the kid is here some days, here another day. This kid is a 8-year-old kid being split between two homes. So is a kid acting out because mom and dad is newly divorced? Like you have to kind of put stuff into perspective. It's not always a kid having an issue. The kid is having a life issue, You're just telling the kid to process adult stuff that adults can't even process. So this is all new for adults to have a change. So how was an 8-year-old kid processing being at dad's certain many days a week and being at mom's certain many days a week? It's like, this is life. But you're telling the kid to process this and then you're giving them medication to process this. Like, it's like, and she asking me like what I think. I said, I mean, I can't give you from a medical standpoint, I can't do that legally, but it's like, I mean, like, this is me telling you guys what I'm telling you now is what I'm telling her. Like, I'm listening to what you're telling me, but how can you expect an 8-year-old to process being separated between two homes? And, you still seem like you're having a hard time processing. So you're expecting an 8-year-old to do that? I mean, me personally, I would think he's having a hard time processing being at two different places. He's supposed to be one way at one place, another way at another place. And I don't know, I said, from the way you're talking, it doesn't sound like your ex would be saying pleasant things about you in front of him. I'm like, so that's another thing too. That's why I'm huge on co-parenting situations, because when you're co-parenting with the non-custodial parent, it's like talking bad about that parent in front of that child is crucial, because the child can take it as you talking bad about me, because you don't know what features that child could have more like that non-custodial parent that you're talking about. So they internalizing like, oh, you feel this way about me, So I always tell parents, like, that's another series I'm finna work on too, because I find that so much that in co-parenting situations, it's like you need to be mindful of how you talk. I don't care if he left you for Sally Sue or she left you for Bob. That goes out the window. Your main focus should be what's in the best interest of that child. Leave your personal feelings at the door. It's like, do not be talking bad about that non-custodial parent in front of ears reach of that child. I just do not believe in doing that. I've never done it. And I was in a horrible situation. Like, you guys know my son tried to take his life and be due to the non-custodial parent. But I've never to this day, and I still don't talk bad about the non-custodial parent in front of my child. I just don't do it. And my son is going to be 26 years old. I just do not do it. I just don't believe in doing it. Like what is going to benefit me any to do it? It serves no purpose to me. So it's like my adult feelings are my adult feelings, and I will deal with those accordingly. But for me to do it, it just serves no purpose. I just feel like if you over that situation personally, why even give it your energy in that way?
Yeah. I mean, that's healthy parenting. But yeah, like you said, it's hard too, because a lot of parents do have struggles with that, with talking about the other parent. And yeah, it sounds like something even like for BHIS, like to bring in when I was, what I do in my position is the nice thing about BHIS is BHIS can go to both homes and work on those behaviors at both homes. Cause like you said, a lot of the times the kids' behaviors are attention seeking. They're probably getting that attention from mom or dad at one of the homes too. So having that neutral person being able to be at both homes or see him at school as well to help work on those behaviors does definitely help too. But you mentioned too that at the beginning that your son had a dyslexic diagnosis. How did that come out? How did that get discovered? How did you guys start with that process of working with him then on that behavior or diagnosis?
I found out from his second grade teacher because she had
Okay.
her husband was dyslexic. So she noticed it in his schoolwork. He was writing his R's, his D's, and fives backwards.
Okay.
So when I went to a parent teacher conference, like his first report card pickup, she said, I think he's dyslexic. And she said, I know this because she said my husband is. And she said, I see the signs. She said, but she said the school will give me a hard time asking them to test him. She said, but you're the mom. If you push to have him tested, then they will do it. She said, because if the parents do it, then, they'll kind of like light the fire to them. She said, but if I do it, they're going to drag. So when I did it, it's still like it didn't get done. When I ended up moving back I lived in Minnesota at the time. So when I ended up moving back to Illinois, I told them like what his teacher said. They was like, oh, well, maybe it was that school. And I'm like, how's it that school if he's still, like, this is clear. This is his handwriting. Like, he was like struggling with reading. He was like really struggling. And I remember my brother, I used to work 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. when I worked in surgery. And so my brother was helping him with his homework one day, and he was like reading a book and he was having trouble. And my brother like popped him upside the head one day because my brother was like real militant with him. And so he like cried so bad because he couldn't do it. Like he couldn't read it. He couldn't read it because he was dyslexic. Like, so he never forget that to this day. My son brings it up. My son is 23. He brings it up. He said he'll never forget that day. And he used to struggle because he didn't see numbers and letters like we see it. So he's like, I still remember that. He was like, I never forgive him for that. Like he still remember that. Like he always says that too. But yeah, I told my brother, like, don't ever help him with his homework again. Like he'll wait till I get home from work. He'll just do it after 7 o'clock. When I get off work, he'll just do it later. Like, don't help him with his homework. I'm like, you don't have the patience, like, don't help him with his homework. And so when he finally ended up getting tested, when he was in 4th grade, they finally tested him and said he is dyslexic, and he had an IEP ever since. He had it even in college because he's still in college now, so he has it.
I think when we are around someone who has dyslexia, we're better able to understand it and see those signs in others. And a lot of these things, a lot of these ways of learning and different ways of thinking have genetic components. And so again, as parents, we are in such a great position to be able to identify these things for our children and then also advocate and bring them separate from the school, bring them in to get them tested. And my husband is extremely dyslexic, extremely. And he had such a hard time in school, in elementary school, because he didn't know what it was. His mom didn't know what it was. His teachers didn't know what it was. And they all thought he was stupid. And he thought he was stupid. And his teachers were like, he's not going to really do so well, right? And he still carries that with him as an adult. And after being diagnosed as an adult, he's able to say now, okay, this is what it is. This is the accommodation I have to make for myself in order to do these things successfully. Yeah, it's not fair that I have to do things differently, but also being dyslexic makes him extremely good at other things that, like, I'm terrible at, right? And he is like amazing at them. And so it really, once somebody knows that he's dyslexic, you can tell, but you can also see where those superpowers are, that creative problem solving, that spatial recognition, right? All of like the math and science stuff that he's able to understand and pull apart and put back together, it blows my mind, right? It makes my mind feels mushy after I hear about that. And so with my daughter, being able to see, even at the age of 2, being able to see a lot of those same frustrations she was having, a lot of those same things, we were able to get her those accommodations early. And it's nice in our family because there are a lot of things that she gets from me. She snores super loud. She sleeps the same way that I do. Okay. She will throw her clothes all over her room. That's totally from me. Okay. So she does all these things that I do, but she also, in this regard, she does this, but she knows that her daddy does it too. She knows that her dad is dyslexic and she's dyslexic, and she has no shame about it. Like she'll tell anybody who asks. And the thing is that people are always surprised, or I think sometimes people don't believe me when I say it, because when you see her read, when you see her write, she doesn't do those things anymore as often, right? And so she does them the same amount that maybe a typical first grader would do them. But that's on purpose. Like that's because we were able to get her tested. We were able to put those things in place ahead of time. And so as a parent, I love what you're saying about, we can't rely on, the school is there to educate my child. The school is not there to handle their mental health needs, to handle their external needs, their medical needs. And that is our role and that is our job. And we don't have to wait on being offered an IEP. We can ask for an IEP. We don't have to wait for, Iowa schools will not diagnose dyslexia. It's like a law that they can't diagnose that. And so they can do it through the AEA and they can do it through other services, but the schools themselves are not allowed to do it. And so if we wait for a school to diagnose our child, we're going to be waiting a long time, unless we get lucky and we get a teacher who understands it from personal experience. And so I love your message that we're allowed to do that as parents. We are encouraged to do it. We are allowed to do it. And we can only do what we know. And so if we don't know, we don't know. And if we're gathering this information and learning about these things for our children, then that empowers us so much more. So you're really empowering those parents, which I just think is wonderful. And so in regard to the co-parenting, I love this because, like Chrissa said, BHIS is so great. It's in both houses. And so a BHIS counselor can come in and meet with that child at dad's one week and meet with the child at mom's the other week and go, oh goodness, this is a totally different child. Okay, what is working at dad's house that isn't happening at mom's house? What is working at mom's house that isn't happening at dad's house, right? And what are the rules at both houses? And BHIS is so helpful for that. I love Moms of Tampa. Do you guys watch Moms of Tampa ever? My goodness. So on Facebook, TikTok, probably Instagram, Moms of Tampa, they are so there was a husband and a wife. They were separated. They had a son. And then the husband got married to another woman. And that new mom, that stepmom, and the biological mom became best friends. And then the biological mom also married again and had another son. And now that son that has no biological relationship to the biological dad of the first one is like step parent to this other son. It's amazing. They go on vacations together. They're best friends. And these children never have to experience that feeling of, well, a negative comment about my mother is really a negative comment about me, or a negative comment about my father is really a negative comment about me. So Moms of Tampa is it's so cool, and it's funny also. So absolutely. I love this. What great information you've given us today. And now where can people find your TikToks? Where can people find your Facebook posts and your lives and these different segments of education that you're doing?
Oh, it's at the Spice to Your Life TikTok is what it's on. And then the same thing for my Facebook and Instagram. So it's the same, all the same handle.
Perfect. Spice up your life.
Spice to Your Life. The same, yeah, so it's the same thing.
Yes. Perfect.
And then
Spice to your life.
And one thing I wanted to add, like with my son being dyslexic, like you say, he put in the work, like even when he was in high school, he graduated with honors. Like he went to school early, he stayed late, he studied. He would, if it was something he didn't understand, he asked questions. He stayed late after class. He went like on his lunch period, he'll go and ask the teacher. He would come in a little early. He used to leave out the house sometimes at like 5:30 in the morning, come to school at 6 in the morning. Like he was always proactive. Like even though he had his IEP, he was always proactive. It's like my other two boys didn't have no issues with, dyslexia, and he got the best grades. My dyslexic child had the best grades. So it's like he just always put in the extra effort, put in the extra work. He didn't let his disability define him. Like even with college, like it's like he set goals for himself, and he always said, oh mom, by the time I give myself a year and I want to achieve this, I give myself 2 years and I want to do this, or like he's like that now, even like with his job and him working. Like if he say I want to move here, or I want to travel here, or I want to go there, like he saves his money. He's like he's real strategic at like what he does. Like I remember the first time when he tried to do like online classes, like with his dyslexia, he said, "Ma, I don't think online classes is for me." That's why at the height of COVID, he took a year off, because he said that he tried the online classes. He said, "Ma, it was just too much of a struggle for him."
Yeah.
Because he said he needs the in class type of environment. He said the online was just too much of a struggle for him, because he said if he had questions for his professor, he just found it was too difficult to try to like navigate through the whole like online class. And if it was something he didn't understand, he said it was just too much going on, too much going on for him. So he said he didn't really like it. So
That would be
he
nice.
said he didn't, he said he didn't prefer to do that. He said he'd just rather go back on campus again.
Yeah.
So he said he didn't like it. So
Yeah. I mean, even just working during COVID was hard. I can't imagine like being in school online with dyslexia as well. That would definitely be hard.
Yeah, he said I didn't like it.
Okay, well, if you could give one suggestion to somebody on the fence about either starting counseling or getting their kid tested or getting looked into for an IEP or 504 plan, what suggestion would you give to somebody on the fence?
I always say, I was just telling, I was just speaking to my best friend husband, and I said that I believe everybody had some form of trauma in their life. I said, especially if you grew up in the inner city, I always said that we all have experienced some form of PTSD, but I just feel like it comes out in people's lives differently. And I feel like especially in the African American community, I think people have a huge stigma on like labels. They feel like um, I don't want to be titled this. I'm not crazy. I said, but you prefer to run to the bottle when something goes wrong, or pick up a substance when something goes wrong, but you claim you don't have an issue. Clearly, you have an issue. I'm like, but I said, you drowning yourself in a bottle or picking up a substance is not going to make your issue better. You're just going to make your issue worse. It's like even me personally, like over the holidays, I've dealt with depression. Sometimes just being alone, just being here alone and sometimes away from my family, like I struggle myself. And I'm very transparent about that. Like sometimes me doing my social media content, sometimes I'll be talking to myself when I'm motivating other people because sometimes I have to get that out myself. Like just being um here alone, sometimes I say, telling people like you need to like reach out to somebody when you find yourself getting too much in your thoughts, not so much like you're feeling suicidal, but just like get down or depressed. Sometimes you gotta just reach out. I find myself when I'm feeling down, I don't like to make other people feel down, so I don't reach out. But sometimes you have to because I'll seclude myself. So that's how I know when I start to get down. Like I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't answer my phone. I don't want to be around nobody. I just like distance myself from everybody, and that's not a good thing. And I noticed for me personally, like my older two boys have been giving me like a hard time. So I told them, I put them on like on a 60-day probation. Like, no, I didn't want to talk to them for 60 days because I just got tired of them with a bunch of their shenanigans, and I just needed a mental break. Like just the constant, if somebody just like pulling on you and pulling on you and it's just too much and it's negative, like sometimes I have to put boundaries on people, even my kids. Like I need a break. Like you're not finna like I just can't deal with it. So it's like and they didn't know how to accept it. Like, what's wrong with my mother? Calling all my family members, like, why she not talking to us? And I'm like, and I told them, I gave them a heads up, like around Thanksgiving, like come December 1st, I won't be talking to y'all till February 1st. Like, I need a break. I can't do it. Like all these late night weird phone calls, calling with shenanigans. Like, I don't have time for it. Like, I'm not finna deal with it. Like setting boundaries. Like you gotta set boundaries for people. Like I don't care if it's kids, family members, whoever it is. Like that's what 2023 for me is boundaries. Like I'm setting boundaries. I don't care who it is. And it's so funny because my oldest son told my his son's mother, like, oh, don't call him. Like I didn't want to talk to my grandkids. It's like, no, I'm talking to my grandkids. I'm just not talking to
Just not my
you.
kids.
Right. So it's like I'm talking to my grandkids, but I'm just not talking to you. So it was just for me, like setting boundaries for people. But I feel like everyone needs counseling. I feel like I wouldn't be where I'm at without it personally. And as far as um, if you feel like your child needs services, whether it's if you feel your child is autistic, has ADHD, ADD, a learning disability, or have developmental delays, you can always call and have your child evaluated by a pediatric neurologist. So wherever that is, whatever state you in, and they take your local managed Medicaid programs. So it has to be like a managed Medicaid, not just a straight Medicaid. But you can call and get a scheduled appointment somewhere. But you have to be aware that those appointments can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months out. So just be prepared for that when you do call to schedule an appointment.
Yes.
So.
Such great information. And if you are, if you're thinking about ADHD as a potential, for example, you can also call and get scheduled with a counselor, because a counselor is able to diagnose ADHD, can give you that diagnosis for your psychiatrist or your family doctor to start a conversation about medication management if you want to do that, but also can start that weekly therapy or that bi-weekly therapy with your child, and can give you that diagnosis to bring to the school and say, look, my child can benefit from an IEP. Here's their diagnosis for ADHD. We cannot diagnose for dyslexia and other neurological diagnoses, but oftentimes, here at Heart and Solutions, so if you're in Iowa, you can give us a call and get an assessment done, and we can do a referral. And a lot of times, if we do a referral to one of the testing sites, then we can get you bumped up that waiting list so that you can get in faster. And we can also, a lot of times, if you have that therapy service or that BHIS service or both going at a consistent rate, you're more able to get into that managed Medicaid. And if you do have that managed Medicaid, sometimes they have requirements for you to try first before you get to go see a pediatric neurologist. And so being able to prove that, yep, my child has been in therapy for this amount of time, here's all the notes, or here's a letter that says that, can sometimes help speed up that process as well. So if you are in Iowa, give us a call at 800-531-4236. That in-home behavioral health program is so great for co-parenting, and that's 100% covered by Iowa Medicaid as well. So Tenesha, thank you so much for being here. You can find Tenesha at Spice to Your Life on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I love it. It's easy for me to remember because that's your email also. So I always think Spice of Your Life or Spice to Your Life when I think of Tenesha. But thank you so much for being on our board. Thank you so much for being on these two episodes, and we'd love to have you back another time.
I'm Tenesha Gatson, and I definitely need a counselor.
Awesome.
Love it. So do I. So does Chrissa. We all do. Love it.
Okay. And like Julie mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we post new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So save up your laundry or whatever chore you hate doing and listen to us while you get that done on Sunday night, and we can help get you connected with some services or whoever our guest is that week as well. And if you have any questions for us, you can reach us on our Facebook page at You Need a Counselor Podcast, our Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast, or we now have that Patreon that Julie was talking about. So you can subscribe to that or subscribe to our YouTube where we post BHIS activity videos as well, and like and share our video and all of that stuff. Okay, so I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you. Bye.
Bye.